All right, we are back at it again with looking back on Survivor. It's been a long time, but not because Alex has stopped watching Survivor, but because it's just been hard to record. But we are going to continue on. So this episode, we're going to focus on season 10 where we left off, Palau. So, uh, Alex, your overall thoughts on Palau before we dig into like the nitty-gritty of the season and what some of our favorite moments were. What was your just your overall thoughts on the season?
Yeah, I mean, I thought this was a really fun season, and I this is number 10 in our sequence here, and I've watched all the way up to I'm on the finale of Survivor Nicaragua. As
Ooh,
we're recording this now, I've watched all of the new era from 41 up and all the way up to basically 21 now. So I'm getting caught up. Like I said, I would told you I was going to do this, but with Palau, I think this was just an interesting season based on how everything played out. uh, I think he had a great winner in Tom Westman. I think very, loved by fans and really, that New York City fire lieutenant, that's just he's an old school guy and you better keep your word, Ian. So, and if you don't go on, go back on your word and betray Tom, it's not a good place to be. But no, I thought it was a fun season overall. Obviously, it was a complete domination. Uh One tribe completely fell apart. There was one person left, Stephanie LaGrossa. She had to join the other tribe at the merge. Then they only lost one person because they did a double vote out, even though they won the immunity challenge. So, really, I mean, it was just a complete knockout of a performance from Tom and his tribe. But overall, I thought it was a really good season. Not my favorite, but it was good.
I it was interesting just listening to you like point for point what you're talking about. This is exactly how I felt when I first watched it when I was probably in my early to mid 20s. And I rewatched it when I got married. So we went back and we watched a couple seasons live, and then she wanted to go back and watch some other ones. So I was showing her ones that I remembered liking from the earlier seasons. And when I rewatched it, it didn't quite feel the same. And I can explain some pieces here or there. I think it's probably like somewhere in the middle of the pack overall,
Mhm.
especially for like what we've seen so far for our first 10. It would be higher maybe than middle just because Thailand, Vanuatu. I definitely have those two beneath this. But in All Stars, I might have just a little, and Marquesas maybe just a little, but it's to me generally in that same area as those two
Mm.
seasons, which puts it beneath like the first three seasons for sure. Puts it beneath Pearl Islands and Amazon for sure. Puts it beneath um, what else am I missing? Is that it? That might be it
Amazon, maybe.
because yeah, that's it. I was thinking about China, but China's coming up still.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
I can get into some specifics of why, but you are right. Overall, still a pretty good season, still a good cast. One of the biggest reasons why I've kind of bumped down on it a little bit is my feelings towards Tom did change.
Interesting.
Exactly how you talked about him was how I felt when I was in my early 20s, and I didn't do a one. I wouldn't say a 180, but like definitely do not agree with that assessment. Now, which is funny because I would have 100% agreed with you not too long ago. So let's go ahead and get into some of the highlights. This is an interesting season because of the fact that they do start off with that big twist when they have
That was a
20
dumb
contestants.
twist.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's something that like nowadays I would still be like, man, it kind of sucks for, the people that didn't make it or whatever. But it also like wouldn't be that crazy nowadays. Like like
Right.
they do so many different things. And if you've been listening to our other episodes as we go along and listen to us talk about Survivor, we like Survivor even still. But one of the things is they do a lot more crazy twists in the new era. So this one would have been like wouldn't have even been that surprising to me. I wouldn't have loved it still, but it wouldn't have surprised me. Other than that, the real highlight of the season in the early game, outside of that big twist, is the fact that it was just like every week you were thinking, okay, well, is Karor going to finally lose a challenge? Are they ever going to lose? And the answer was basically no. They're never going to lose.
No. It was embarrassing. I mean, honestly, and like you had some strong men on you long too. Like you thought like there were some pretty good individual challenge beast on that team, but they just couldn't pull it together.
It was
I mean,
bizarre.
Stephanie might be the best female challenge beast on this season as
She's
well.
probably the best female challenge player that you've seen to this point.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, she's really athletic, really good, and she's like so tired of losing. Like she kind of felt like the heart and soul of the team. Bobby John obviously was a part of that, and those two made it to the final two. They ended up having an alliance, but Ibrahim was just a joke. We talked before we came on air, but like James, it was so funny because he's like a steel worker and he like builds things for a living. And one of their challenges was who can build the best bathroom, and whoever wins gets to keep it basically and gets all the fixings with it. And they lose to Ian, who was like 23, I think, or something like that, like super
Yeah,
young. And it's like didn't even have any experience at all. And here's James, like that's his profession, building things, and he's just blah. You know, how does a dolphin
a
trainer
dolphin trainer.
do a better job of building a bathroom than a guy that's in in the steel industry? Now, I will say this: James is hilarious. He's great in confessional,
Oh,
super
great
super
TV.
funny. You definitely can't get enough of him. And the twist you talked about at the beginning, it was really weird, but basically, there's two necklaces on the island, and they're like, "All right, first two to get them, they're yours." You know, whatever. And so everyone's like, "What are we gonna do?" Like Stephanie and somebody else should jump out into the water, and everybody else is like using the boat to get close to shore, and they're all running for it. And when they get those necklaces, it's like, okay, you guys are now the captains of the team. And whoever was not picked, Wanda and Jonathan were the two that didn't get picked, and they had to go. And it was like, wow. So they were there for like one day, I think it was, after they did a schoolyard pick. And it was just one of those most random. It was really random and really like, okay, like you said, it's definitely like crazy to think that that happened in season 10. The
Yeah,
new era, it feels way more like that would be something that happens. But yeah, I never thought I would see such a domination by one tribe versus another. But yeah, it was embarrassing. And Bobby John and Stephanie really they they were just they were good, but they just didn't have what it takes to get over the hump, and
yeah,
they never
it was
really
wild.
even when we'll talk about that later, but like even when they return to play again,
Yeah,
like they're still not like great players. It's like
yeah.
a lot of
It,
flaws in their game.
it's interesting because it's like so many of the early challenges. You're like, oh, surely they'll win this one, and then maybe they'll win this one. But at some point, it's like the advantage of being able to rest your players is like almost impossible. Like the last several challenges, you're just like they're actually just gonna never win a challenge until
Mhm.
they do a tribe swap. And then like one of the twists kind of is that they just don't do a tribe swap, and they just let it go all the way down to the wire with Stephanie and Bobby John having to do a fire making challenge to see who gets to stay in the game. Which that also was
The
pretty.
first
I think it was the first. Like it definitely was the first in terms of before like the Final Four.
It was the first
But
fire making I think of all time when I
yeah.
looked it up today, and then
Oh,
that's the
okay.
first person to not be eliminated by a
A
vote.
vote. Yeah, that makes
Bobby
sense. That makes
Bobby
sense.
John.
So, I mean, this is 10 seasons in, so it's still pretty early, but I wasn't sure if it was the first fire making or not. But yeah, and definitely, I would have assumed it would have been the first one that wasn't in the end. Even though I know they added that twist in terms of making it an official part of the game. They added that in like the mid to late 30s, in Heroes versus Hustlers. But I wasn't sure because that was always a part of the tiebreaker. Not always, but it was a part of the tiebreaker from early on. So it was probably
Mhm.
a part of the game that just never had come around until Palau. Um, but yeah, I mean, just wild to have, and that part is part of what made it entertaining TV is like, how long is number one, how long are they going to go before they finally win, or number two, how long is the production going to let them just whittle themselves down until they get down? Will they let them go to three? Will they let them go to two? Or let them go to like you just keep asking like, well, surely they're going to do a tribe swap now. Well, surely, and they just never do it. So it made it for pretty good TV, even if it made the post merge a little less interesting, which is part of my problem with the game. So that pre merge is interesting not because you are wondering who's going to get voted off necessarily, but because you're curious to see if Oolong will ever win a challenge and curious to see when they'll do a swap. But once,
Let me ask you this real
yeah,
quick,
go
because
ahead.
do you think they would have done a swap if Yulong hadn't just kept losing, or do you think that production was like, let's change things up here and just see how long they go with these this losing streak, and if they can just completely deteriorate as a tribe,
Yeah.
that would be great television as well.
Yeah. See, what this is one of those situations where what feels to be common sense and what people like Jeff have always said don't go together. So
Yeah.
Jeff has always said we plan out everything beforehand, the way that we do on Survivor Indianapolis. And we don't like just like willy-nilly change things based off of what happens in the game. If we think someone's that if one of our favorites is potentially going to be voted off, we don't throw some twist in the game to try to save them. Um, However, it is a TV show, and it makes sense that they would do things to make a good TV show. As long as it doesn't change the integrity of the game, why not? It's kind of my philosophy, at least. And I could see them saying basically, let's just wait and see if it's kind of back and forth, and maybe Karor wins like 4 or 5 in a row, and then it starts to feel a little bit more balanced. Then maybe we do a tribe swap. But if Jeff is accurate in saying that they always plan everything out, and maybe that's just since he took over as the head producer, which I don't believe he wasn't totally in charge at this point. I think it happened in the 20s or 30s. So maybe he just meant when when he's been in charge that they always just plan everything out from the beginning. But it definitely makes sense that they would kind of play it by ear and just be like, well, if Oolong just keeps losing, that might just be good TV to just see how far we can push it, because it
Hmm.
was good TV. It works,
Yeah.
So that's kind of my opinion, but
Makes
that's
sense.
who I don't know. I've never heard anyone from the cast or anyone from the production like address this specific season in that way. So,
Hmm.
but anything else that was particularly noteworthy in the pre-merge before we just go ahead and jump into the uh,
Well, I
post-merge?
think this happened pre-merge, but maybe I'm wrong in my timeline. But Tom gets bit by a shark when he catches one, right? In the
Yeah, I
arm.
don't remember when that is. Yeah, it is
Um,
not early, but it still could be pre-merge,
I think it's close to the merge, but it was pretty
probably.
interesting
Yeah.
because he was trying to be the hero, the big fisherman, and all this stuff, and
Gosh,
he's like
yeah.
bragging about it, and Kobe's just had enough of it.
Kobe is a absolute highlight of the season for sure.
Yeah, he's and until he basically like is just like so fed up he can't handle it anymore. He just gets himself voted out by just being so done with his tribe.
Yeah,
Even though they couldn't, help, but they just won everything. He was like, "Yeah, I'm just done." So he's the first, or excuse me, second person from Karor to be voted out
yeah.
because Willard,
Well,
who
potentially three, depending on how you view Jonathan and Wanda, but
true,
official members of the tribe, he'd be second.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah, Willard was an interesting character as well. But I mean, we had a showmance here that got
pretty
pretty heavy
far.
with Jen and
Yeah,
Gray. We had two of them. One of them was from the Yulong tribe that got over pretty quick. I think it was I don't think it was I think it was maybe Kim. I think it was Kim and
see,
Jeff.
honestly, I don't even remember.
Yeah, because Jeff ended up hurting his ankle, so he said, "I don't think I can be, super productive for the tribe. Just take one for me." And then Kim was like using him as a shield, and they're like, "Yeah, I just get rid of Kim too, because she's nothing without him." Ibrahim, I mean, oh my goodness, that dude was embarrassing for a competitor. I was so disappointed with him. And then Janu, she like gets sent to Exile Island for like a twist for like
Just
for
for
like
one
a
thing, yeah.
one time thing, and she comes back and she's like, "Nope, I'm gonna just quit the game so Stephanie doesn't get voted out." So Stephanie's like, "All right," and then it didn't
And
really
then she
matter
gets voted
'cause-
out.
yeah. So just kind of silly, but I think overall, like the big storyline was like Ian and Katie's alliance and Tom being involved with that. There's an interesting tribal council in his final five, and Karen tries to make a big move and like tries to like call Tom for being a liar. And Tom is annoying to me more than he is like a guy that I just loved.
Okay, so you're not as far from me as what I
I
thought you
was
you
more
might
so
be.
saying like how people viewed him. They viewed him as like
Yes,
this
you're
really
right.
good guy,
In that
and I
time period, yes, when the season came out, I think there is some fan pushback maybe nowadays about him just being the nicest of all guys because I
yeah,
think he's manipulative. And I
he
think he
is. He's kind
uses
of
I think he uses that loyalty mantra to his advantage, and it's
yeah.
very two-faced and it's very hypocritical.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, the way that he like just totally went at Ian
Yeah,
and their final three immunity challenge
yeah.
was
Do you want to go ahead and jump there, or do you feel like we need to like take a second before we get there? I don't really have a whole lot else. I will say my favorite players out of everyone before the final three, probably just Kobe. Like Kobe
yeah,
is sorry, Kobe. I don't know if I mispronounced that for a
it's
minute
Kobe.
there,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, Kobe. like my favorite player of the season up until like beyond Ian and Katie. Ian and Katie were the two standouts to me. I wished that either one of them had played again.
Mhm.
Um, and then so obviously Stephanie is fun to root for as an underdog, but like it's like she almost didn't even get a chance to play the game because it's like you're outnumbered. There's just no way they can let you get to the end because
Yeah.
you are going to win because you have the like pinnacle of an underdog story. And so, like, you feel like you didn't get a good chance to see her. Obviously, you do. She comes back later, but
Mhm.
other than other than Ian and Katie, like, I'd probably have Kobe third and Stephanie fourth out of the players in the season, and then Tom would be fifth. He had very good moments, but by the end, I was
Right.
kind of fed up with him.
No, I felt the same way. He was overwhelming at times,
Yeah,
and his whole thing with Ian, like they had this pack, right? And so I mean, I agree with you with who you liked, and I agree with Stephanie. She's a really fun player to root for.
yeah,
Bobby John too. He's just kind of goofy. Um,
yeah. I know. I like Bobby John too. He had some moments
yeah,
where he's a little too aggressive, and
yeah,
he continues that in future seasons where I'm like, okay, buddy, like,
yeah. Well, I'm excited to talk about Bobby John next season with
yeah,
just some of the
yeah,
yelling matches that he had, but we'll get to that.
yeah,
But in this one, it really because Ian was talking about taking Tom out if Tom, when Tom didn't win immunity or if he didn't win immunity. And Tom ends up winning immunity, and they're like, okay, we can't vote him out. So who are we going to take out next? And, I think that's when they went out for Karen. And that's when everything kind of happened with that, if
yeah,
I'm remembering correctly
Because Karen told Tom, right?
about
So
that.
they
The
were gonna
plan
use
was,
Karen, and she's like, no, I'm gonna tell Tom, and then she like tells him, but she only tells him. It comes across like she only tells him because she felt bad, like she felt
yeah,
guilty. And I'm like,
mm,
okay, you do not belong on Survivor if you're at
yeah,
the final five feeling guilty.
exactly.
Like
And
this is
Ian's
not
playing the game,
what
and
game are you
that's the
playing?
thing. I mean, and Tom was winning so many challenges, like he was going to be hard to beat, and Ian knew that. Like
Yeah,
going to the final two with him was not a good move, and I think keeping Katie as his number one ally was super smart because she was just annoying everybody, rubbing a lot of people the wrong way, and I don't know, Ian and Tom. We can talk about this now. In their final
sure.
immunity challenge,
Yeah.
they basically had to they were out in the middle of the water, hanging on to a pole, and I think there was a buoy in the water, and so they were
It was
like
basically just a buoy in the water. Yeah.
yeah, and they're holding on to that, and it goes for 11 hours and 55 minutes. And finally, I mean, Ian's like, Tom, because you think I disrespected you and I'm not loyal, I'm going to go ahead and jump down, and I want you to take Katie to the final two as long as you'll forgive me and say that I'm a loyal person.
Ooh.
I'm like, what are we doing? You're $1 million is on the line right here, and this is how you're going to give the game up because Tom said you're not loyal. I thought it was so lame, especially for how long he waited. Like it took him almost a half a day
hmm
hanging on a buoy out of
hmm
the water for him to say that. I think he might have just been tired and done. It was like an excuse to just be done. And I think he also knew that Tom wasn't going to bring him to the final two. But it would have actually been very interesting because I don't think Tom would have been able to be that loyal integrity guy if he doesn't take Ian
Exactly.
with
That's the
him.
thing. If you're
Um,
Ian, you have to make him make the choice, and you have to
mhm.
make him cut you, and then he is not the sole survivor. Like maybe he is still a winner, but it would not be nearly the same vote that it ended up being. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
In terms of how lopsided it was. I don't even remember exactly how lopsided it was.
it was
6 to
7-1,
1, 6
6-1.
to 1. I don't even know who. Oh, what wasn't Kobe the one that voted for Katie? I'm pretty
It
positive.
might have been because
I'm
he
pretty
hated
positive it
Tom.
was. I can find it on here. I'm pretty sure, but which just further cements Kobe as my favorite of the season. See, Katie got a vote from Kobe. There it is.
Yep.
So, that's the thing too. Is so all to me, Ian played like a young, impressionable, not kid, but you know what I mean, right?
Hmm.
And he liked Tom, looked up to Tom. They had this rapport. When you hang out and build this bond like that over literal weeks, which is a big difference in the game now. I don't mind the shortened game, but there is that dynamic that you miss of like they they still do bond these casts in the new era, but like not to the point where you see people and maybe it's for the better that we have a shorter game because like I'm talking myself out of it because like Ian threw his game basically because he didn't want
Yeah.
to lose Tom's friendship, and God only knows if they ever stayed friends after this. I legitimately don't know. I've heard podcasts from both of them in the last couple years. I think they were both on um, Rob's series with T-Bird, where they bring on old Survivor players. That's something that you might want to look into now that you're
Yeah.
getting through the seasons. But there's some good interviews with some well-known and some lesser known Survivor players, but they were both on that series at different points. And I don't even remember either one of them like really talking about like still being current. Like, and they may have carried on a friendship for a couple of years, and I really don't know. But like, you have no reason to think that this is going to be a lasting friendship. And if it is, if it should be a lasting friendship, then this game shouldn't impact it. And if this game would impact it, then he isn't the kind of person that you should care about being friends with outside of the game, anyways. So
Right.
like, it's like that's a very immature way of looking at it, I think, from Ian's point of view. And it's a very like impressionable way of looking at it. And I think Tom manipulated the crap out of him. And for that, he deserves to win. But what I don't like about it is that holier than thou mentality of it all, right? If Tom had just been like, I got him, like, you know what I mean? And Tom had
Yep.
revealed to anybody or everybody, whether it's confessionals or actually in the game, that, you know what, I use loyalty. I used it as a strategy to get here. And I don't actually believe that in my heart. But that's the thing. I don't think he did. I think he genuinely meant what he said to Ian. Um, and that when he would have like pushed Ian away. Which to me, like you're gonna manipulate this poor young guy, and then also, but then you sincerely mean it, and you do really believe that loyalty is that important in a game.
Hmm.
I'm just like, okay, buddy. Like, I'm
Yeah.
kind of tired of you now.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
39 days of that too would probably just wear on you because that's
yeah,
how he was from day one when
yep,
they joined together. So, and I think honestly, like it would have maybe benefited both of, both Ian and maybe even probably Stephanie too, if they would have just had the
mm-hmm,
normal swap just
yeah,
to kind of see like, does it strengthen your alliance? Can you find somewhere else to align to? Because I felt like this season it didn't allow people to really have other opportunities to kind of cross align with other different tribes because there was no tribe to really align
yeah,
with besides your own. So then you kind of had to end up breaking trust with somebody at some point in your own
mm-hmm,
alliance, but only two people can make it to the final. So definitely a weird season a little bit. I didn't love the layout and the way it fell, I guess you could say, but I still think Tom obvious. I think Tom or Ian should have won this season. No doubt about it. I have no problem with Tom winning, but other than that, I mean, like you said, it was just annoying the way he kind of approached it.
yeah. Honestly, like I would have loved to have seen Katie win. That would never have happened, just because she rubbed people the wrong way and she didn't care. Like there's something about a Survivor player like Katie that just like, and Sandra is kind of that way.
Mhm.
She doesn't go quite as far necessarily, which is funny because she does say some like pretty biting stuff. But she always picks the right person, right? Like she can say these pretty rude, pretty seriously like loud and like curse word laden uh, insults, but she picks the people that everyone else is already mad at, right? She picks
Mhm.
Johnny Fairplay and Russell Hantz, and so it goes okay. Whereas Katie just like is like, I don't care, whatever, and is just kind of like flippant to anybody and everybody.
Yeah.
So, my point of saying bringing Sandra up is that I love players like that. So I on the rewatch especially, I loved Katie. Like I just like the attitude just was good TV to me. I'm not sure I would have loved it playing with her in person, but watching it, I loved it. So
Well,
it
let
would
me
have
ask
just
you
been
this:
juicy to see her beat Tom, but it would never have happened.
who would Katie have needed to take with her to the final two to have a chance of winning?
Karen,
That's the only thing I can think right there.
Jen,
Karen,
maybe too, just because like what did she do?
Jen.
I don't know.
I think Jen still gets it because she didn't rub people the wrong way.
But I
Like
think that Ian votes for Katie. Tom maybe wouldn't, but like if you bring Jen or Karen, is Tom gonna vote for one of them over? Maybe, maybe not. But like
Greg would, obviously
Greg
they were
would
a
vote for
thing.
Jen, but not for Karen. I think I think she definitely beats Karen. I think she obviously beats Janu.
Mhm.
Um, I think there's a scenario where she could have beaten Ian if Ian full on backstabs Tom, like several votes in. Um, and like it rubs a few people the wrong way. Like if it rubs like Janu and Stephanie and Greg and Jen and Karen, like if it rubs a few people the wrong way that Ian backstabbed Tom, and then Tom wouldn't vote
Mm,
for Ian, right? So like I think there's a scenario where she could beat Ian, which I think was probably her goal. That's why she was all about like stoking Ian's like, yeah, go, yeah, we should definitely vote Tom out. Like, yeah, like pushing that agenda because it helped. I think it helped her more than it
mm,
helped Ian, even though Ian couldn't have beaten Tom. Ian needed to go to the end with like anybody except for Stephanie, and Tom, and probably not Katie, just because it would have given like people that were bitter a viable alternative, because Katie was a part of that main alliance. So
right.
I don't know. It's interesting. It's because like the season, the post merge really is not that interesting. What is interesting is like, will this group of three, Ian, Katie, and Tom, ever split up or not? And that ultimately is not quite as interesting as like a more dynamic grouping of alliances where things are kind of more like in flux, right? Um,
Mm,
so that the post merge being a little bit more stale to me, and Tom just being like kind of a big gas bag. Just by the end, I'm just like, okay, let's move on, you know. But
yeah.
that's part of why it dropped a little bit for me in my appreciation of the season. But
Mm, yeah. I
that's kind
mean,
of where I'm at with the season. Do you have anything else you want to add in, or are you ready to move on?
no, I'm ready to move on. I mean, it was a good season. I did enjoy it, but there's definitely a lot more other seasons I have enjoyed
Yeah.
much better.
Were we giving them star ratings like out of 5 or out of 10 or something like that?
I'd give it a 3 if we were. I mean,
Out of
it's
5?
average.
Yeah,
3 out
I
of
was I
5.
would say I would say 3 to 5 is probably about where I would be too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fine.
Okay. All right. Well, so that is Survivor Palau.